Brick Fanatics, you shall not pass! The LEGO Lord of the Rings Balrog Book Nook is here and it looks absolutely fantastic. It is brilliant. It's got Gandalf as a minifigure. It's got a brick-built Balrog. It's got some fire and it's got some pillars and this is good, right? This is good, right? Right? The thing about this one is, I had a good old first look at it and I was so excited, I was thrilled. I thought, wow, this is fantastic, this is the one that I've been waiting for, this is such a good idea for a LEGO set, because alongside things like the Sherlock Holmes Book Nook and the Harry Potter Hogwarts Express Book Nook, this just feels like the perfect fit for the LEGO treatment. And then I kept looking at it and I realised that a lot of my enthusiasm was really more in my head rather than what I was actually looking at. One thing I do feel like I should emphasise here is this is really just first impressions based on the photos of this set rather than having it in hand. We do have a review for this set coming, so definitely hit that subscribe button if you want to be the first to know about that. It should be going up later this week, fingers crossed. I've noticed with a few sets recently, in particular the Bluey LEGO sets, that sometimes looking at the photos of these things, you don't quite get the full sense of the set, and actually having it hands-on, something which on paper doesn't look great, can end up winning you over. The challenge here is that the thing feels a little bit sparse. It's got Gandalf, yes, and it's got the Balrog, yes, and the Balrog is alright. It's not quite how I would imagine a Balrog to be, because I normally think of a Balrog as being a little bit stockier, a little bit beefier, and then significantly more fiery, especially on the back, and I would have preferred something that had a little bit more orange in there as well as just black and then some little flames on the back. This reminds me a lot of the Thor vs Surtur construction figure set, which has a very similar brick-built character, and indeed I feel does a much better job of conveying that fieriness and blackness in the design. I would have loved to have seen that kind of approach with this Balrog. It's also worth pointing out that that set is a quarter of the price of this one, even though it's got a couple more minifigures in here. Well, do skeletons count as minifigures? I still say yes. But really what I feel is missing here is literally missing. There's no back to this, there's no side to this, it's kind of just a frame, and otherwise there's no additional scenery and detail here. By the way, if I'm not putting you off this LEGO set and you're interested in buying it, or indeed anything else from the LEGO website in the near future, you can use the affiliate link which is down in the description, or the QR code that is currently on screen. They take you straight to the LEGO website. We get a percentage of the sale when you purchase through those links, so it helps to keep the lights on at Brick Fanatics, helps to keep us making videos and content over on the website. It doesn't cost you a penny extra. Perhaps if this had been the first of these book nooks to be revealed, I'd have said, yes, that's fantastic, it's doing everything I want, but because we've had the Sherlock Holmes book nook reveal, because we've had the Harry Potter book nook reveal, and because both of those exceeded expectations, you look at this one by comparison and you just feel, there is literally something missing here. This is not actually the smallest in terms of piece count of these book nooks. This one contains 1,201 pieces, which is significantly more than the 832 pieces in the Harry Potter book nook. But because that one has walls to it, because it has platform 9 3/4, it feels more substantial. It also doesn't help that the Balrog Book Nook is priced give or take at the same price depending on where you live as the Sherlock Holmes Book Nook, which contains significantly more pieces. That one has 1,359 elements in the box. And with that one, it's clear where those elements have gone, whereas with this one, a lot of those elements are clearly in the Balrog, and then we've got the frame of the thing, but otherwise, it's nothing. There is nothing here. There is no thing. And without wanting to harp on comparing this thing to everything else in the LEGO catalogue, one of the big advantages of having a Lord of the Rings Book Nook would theoretically be that people who want a LEGO Lord of the Rings set don't need to pay the huge amount that we've seen for some of these other sets in recent years, where you've got Barad-dûr, you've got Rivendell, you've got the Shire, all of which are much larger, more expensive sets. Here's a relatively cheap one, and it should be a little bit more accessible, right? Except even though it's half the price of the Shire, I feel like the Shire has more than twice as much stuff in here. Not literally in terms of elements, actually this has a little more than half of the elements of the Shire, but the elements that are in the Shire are more interesting elements. You get all of the cool detail in Bag End, you've got all of those minifigures, whereas here you've really just got a box full of grey bricks that are designed to make a very plain looking border. Of all of the iconic scenes from The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, it's hard to think of anything that would work quite as well as a Book Nook as the Balrog scene, because the Balrog scene is, by design, exactly the right shape for a Book Nook, because of that long, thin Indiana Jones-style leap of faith walkway that Gandalf has to stand on one end of to do the whole "you shall not pass" thing. And maybe that being the case, it's a little much to also expect to have all of the scenery around that, because it is mostly very dark, empty space anyway, so in that regard, this adequately conveys what is actually in the film. But we could have had some flat backgrounds depicting rocks and cavey things, maybe a printed tile that shows off the rest of the Fellowship watching and going, "Oh no, it's Gandalf, he's going to die," that kind of thing. And we have none of that because we just have nothing. We have some fire, I'll give it that, but the fire has exactly the same problem as the sling ring circles in the Avengers Endgame diorama that I have mocked a little bit too much perhaps on this channel in the past for being basically just flat and a few minifigures on an otherwise nondescript base. This one definitely, I think, falls into that category of a Lego set that requires you to use your imagination to see the rest of the scene, and that's fair enough when the price isn't this high. At least with something like Barad-dûr, it is, yeah, very expensive, but also very impressive to look at. At least with Rivendell, it's very expensive, but there's an awful lot of stuff there. It's very expansive. At least with the Shire, it's very expensive, but there are so many minifigures in there, there's so much other cool detail. With this one, there is no detail, there's only the one minifigure. There's, yes, a brick-built Balrog, but otherwise, again, I come back to this, there's nothing else here. I will say I do like the Balrog's wings here. These are pretty cool. I always like a funky wing element. I had the same kind of feeling when I saw the Da Vinci flying machine. It's just nice to have them. I also like the whip here, which is pretty cool. It's got a little Wolverine claw on the end, and it's a very nice colour. This is the kind of oranginess that I would have liked to see a little bit more in the build otherwise. I think it's clever how those wings attach to the sides of the Book Nook. As you fold it up, the wings also fold in, or indeed open up, depending on how you're having it displayed. It ultimately, though, ends up feeling like you're paying a lot of money here for a Gandalf minifigure and some bricks that, with the exception of a couple of printed pieces, could probably be bought cheaper elsewhere. But alright, enough harping on that. Would you like to hear the story, and this is very self-indulgent, of the time I met Sir Ian McKellen? A few years ago, Sir Ian McKellen did an 80th birthday celebration where he picked a few selected theatres around the country and he decided to go on tour doing a one-man show where he wandered around to all of these places and then told his life story and did some Shakespeare and had some fun. All of the tickets were priced very cheap and all of the money went to the theatres, and at the end of the show McKellen himself took a bucket and rattled it outside the door so that as you were leaving you had to say hello to him, shake his hand, whatnot, and then put some money in the bucket. And the show starts exactly the way you would expect it to. It's all dark and then suddenly a spotlight appears and there's Sir Ian McKellen holding his copy of The Lord of the Rings and doing the whole "you shall not pass" thing. And then he's like, alright, would anyone from the audience like to come up and say hello to me? One of the young ones. And he's looking around and you can see me because I'm on the front row and he's like, come on up. And I don't, because I think to myself, oh yeah, I'll let one of the young ones go up, not thinking this man is 80 years old. I am one of the young ones. He gets me up later in the show to read something from one of his books, like his own personal copy of Shakespeare that was given to him by his grandparents, and he was like, here, read out the inscription to everybody. So I do that, and I feel like I've had a satisfactory moment. He also gave my wife a banana while he was doing his Widow Twankey from pantomime, which was a very surreal moment, and it was signed, but what are you going to do with a signed banana? So my wife ate it, and after the show, as he sees us again, he's like, oh, you ate the banana? And my wife's like, yeah, what am I going to do with it? Oh, he also at one point thumbed through the programme for the show and found a picture of Patrick Stewart and asked someone, who's that? And they said, it's Patrick Stewart, and he said, oh good, I'll tell him that he was recognised. I guess the moral of this video is just Sir Ian McKellen is actually very funny and cool in real life, which would not surprise anybody, I don't think. I'm sorry, this video has really gone off the rails. Let us know what you think of the new Book Nook and if I am being unnecessarily harsh on this thing in the comments down below. Make sure that you also do all of the rest of the YouTube things. Give this video a thumbs up and hit subscribe and the notification bell. Make sure, by the way, that you do go to brickfanatics.com for coverage of all things Lego and sign up to our newsletter so that you never miss anything Lego related ever again. Thank you very much for watching and have a wonderful day.